Welcome to the Blue Dot, Northern Kentucky's premier political podcast, brought to you by the Kenton County Democratic Executive Committee. Welcome back to the Blue Dot podcast, and we are back with yet another candidate interview. This week, we're honored to have Erin Petrey, Democratic candidate running for Congress in Kentucky's 6th Congressional District. Erin's campaign has been getting a lot of attention, not only for her message, but also her amazing launch video, where she's mixing up an old-fashioned bourbon while talking about Kentucky's issues. It's risen to the top of my favorite political anthem.
That's right, Natalie, and mine as well. Erin has a fascinating background. She grew up in Kentucky, worked in diplomacy and large-scale infrastructure development, led sustainability projects at Amazon Web Services, and even spent time as a cocktail editor for a bourbon publication. Erin, we are thrilled to have you here to tell us your story and your vision for Kentucky.
Well, thank you, Natalie, and thank you, Brian, for having me. I'm equally thrilled to be with y'all.
Awesome. Well, welcome again. So let's start with your roots.
Yeah.
You were born in Lexington.
Yes.
You grew up in a farm in Lawrenceburg, attended Fayette County Public Schools. But let's hear it from you. Share a little bit about you and what made you leap into politics.
Yeah. So growing up, I grew up in a house that my parents built with their own hands. So I always knew the importance of building big things that are important to people, but also that last. And so my parents did, even though I grew up, like a mile away from my closest neighbor, down a gravel driveway and, was on the bush hog and mucked the barn stalls, growing up. I always really envisioned having, a big part in the world outside of the confines of Kentucky and learning about the world so I could better understand myself and where I came from. I was always an avid reader and I wanted to be a diplomat. So my schooling and a lot of my career led me down that path of wanting to be an ambassador of Kentucky and America and our brand of democracy and government around the world. And so that's what led me to go to the George Washington University in DC. And then I came back to Kentucky and did my master's at the Patterson School. And then the recession happened. So, all best laid plans go away when the entire market decides to die off. And so I moved to Korea for a year. I taught English at a public school there in southeastern Korea in a city called Daegu. And then I came back. I tried to find a job here in Kentucky, especially doing economic development for Kentucky, doing, like export promotion, that sort of thing. But there just wasn't the kind of opportunities here. So I moved to DC. My first job there that I got was the special assistant to the ambassador of Libya, helping the post-revolutionary Libyan government, after they overthrew Gaddafi, reestablish relationships with the United States. And so it was my job to coordinate with the Department of State, Department of Defense, the White House, the intelligence agencies, Congress, the business community, the Libyan diaspora, on really reestablishing Libya as a player as they became more comfortable in being a fledgling democracy. And then after that, I started building big things. So doing large scale infrastructure projects. So being a program and project manager, building ports, hospitals, manufacturing facilities, renewable energy, manufacturing, as well as electric vehicle charging. And then, as you said, Brian, in the beginning, I worked on data centers and trying to make them more sustainable and less of a suck on the environment, right? Because I was like, listen, what's a huge issue right now? It's data centers. How can I make the biggest impact possible? I'm going to go right into the belly of the beast at Amazon Web Services, the largest hyperscaler data center, and make them more sustainable. And that, Natalie, that is why I'm running for Congress. And that's what's making me make this leap, because I was tired of us not getting anything done in Washington and us needing a new direction, new leadership, new voices, new energy. And I am applying that exact same philosophy to U.S. Congress as I did to Amazon. I have to go into the belly of the beast. You can't change a system until you become part of it. So I want to become part of our congressional representation to improve the way that people here in Kentucky are represented and the way that we operate our government.
Well,
It up.
you answered my question.
Okay.
The next thing I had in line, what pushed you to say, yes, I'm doing this? But I think with your experience and everything you've seen, you answered that, pretty well there. Everybody has a pretty good idea of your background and the things you've seen and the areas for improvement that you've personally experienced, as well as seeing the impact on your neighbors and your fellow Kentuckians. I really like that you have set the tone that you're not running an anti-anything campaign. You are focused on a solutions-driven one.
Yes.
I mean, I love that. What does that look like in practice?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'll be totally honest. Sometimes on social media, I have to call out, absurdities of the current administration because they're real, right? But I always
One or
like,
two.
yeah. I mean, like, what? Listen, I'm a millennial. Okay. I was born in 1987 and I'm just really tired of living through unprecedented times, y'all. Um, I'd like
Mhm.
a little bit of precedentedness.
Amen.
So, but the thing is that, every time I talk about, well, you can't do this around Greenland, I talk about why NATO is important, why multilateralism is important, why globalism is important. Not just because people are like, oh, it's good for diplomacy. No, but it's good economically and it's good and it's sound national security strategy. I have a master's degree in this topic. Um, and so I really focus on, you know, my mom is very much guilty of this, but a lot of people say, "Oh my gosh, did you see what Trump did today? Did you see what Trump did today?" And I'm like,
Right.
"No, honestly, because I'm not focused on that because A, nothing he does surprises me. But B, I'm focused on moving us beyond Trump because at some point there is an expiration date. And what we need to do is know where we are going. And I'll be honest with you is that I've been talking to voters across the 6th district, across Kentucky, and frankly across America because it's social media, right? And the thing is that and what I'm hearing over and over again is that the Democrats, we kind of did this to ourselves because we were not the party that we needed to be at the time that America needed us to be that. And instead they said, listen, I mean, houses are too unaffordable. Education, we're just getting crushed by student loan debt. We aren't, our wages are stagnating. And in Democrats, we were saying, yes, but we weren't being loud. We get this and this is what we're going to do for you. You know, Even though he was a complete liar, Trump said, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z for you. And, we can't blame people for believing in him. Did he lie to them and has he sold them a false bill of goods? Absolutely. But just yelling about that isn't going to solve people's problems. Rhetoric doesn't pay for the rent. Talking points doesn't cover your out of pocket expenses for your health care. It's not going to solve our education problems because people want hope. They want things to hold on to and move forward with. They want this promise of opportunity because that's what excites you. We can't just keep bogging ourselves down over and over again. So, Brian, that's what that looks like to me is it's listening, but then turning those listening moments into, well, here's how I really want to make things change and help you and your family have a better future.
That sounds fantastic.
I It would be, very nice to not have to focus on what was the latest absurdity or
Ugh.
a horrendous, event, egregious infraction against our constitutional rights or what lawlessness is going on, and be able to start talking about things that are visionary and how are we, improving our lives on a daily basis. How do we set goals and how are we getting there? I
Yeah.
mean, there's no goal setting now.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you said that, Brian, because I was at the AFL-CIO earlier this month and I was talking to all their leaders there. And one of them asked me, Erin, what is the number one thing that bothers you about the Trump administration? And I said, there's a lot that I could talk about, but really the number one thing is that there is no strategy or long-term
Mm,
vision. And you talk about
mhm.
goals, right? Like I've been in the private sector a long time, and some people say, well, Erin, do we really need more private sector business people? I'm like, yes, but we need actual private sector leaders who have succeeded and who know how to get things done, not people who put their contractors out of business or who are union
Right.
Right.
busters or who just want to try to declare bankruptcy and take advantage of all the loopholes, right? We need people who actually know how to
Mhm.
build sound businesses and know how to create good quality jobs that provide living wages and invest in critical infrastructure from our roads to our energy systems to our hospitals. That's what we need.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that brings me into like digging into your priorities.
Yeah.
You on your website, you said you're running for affordability, access, opportunity for
Yes,
all.
ma'am.
So, talk to us a little bit about what that means to you and what your first steps would be in Congress to deliver on bringing those opportunities to Kentucky and
Yeah,
beyond.
absolutely. So, I mean, of course, affordability, it's not a hoax, right? That's our lives, right? And so, affordability means, number one, I think around affordability is that we have to attack the wage issue. We can say, oh, we need to lower prices, but really what we need to do is we need to make sure that people are getting paid what they deserve. Teachers in Kentucky, I mean, we have the 48th lowest for starting teacher pay. That's terrible. The 725 is still the minimum wage, and people, I hate it when people virtue signal about jobs like, oh, well, then they need to get a better job. I'm like, but here's the thing, when we establish a floor, that means that people can go down to it. That's depressive to overall wages. So we need to lift up a living wage, because also magically when people are making more money goes into the system for taxes, and then we can then invest in things like healthcare for all. We can invest in more teacher pay. We can invest in actually addressing the affordable housing crisis. Because people always say, well, how are you going to pay for it? And I'm like, well, how about we do the number one thing that I want to do in Congress, which is pass sweeping campaign finance reform. We can see and trace very clearly the downward trajectory and accountability of people in office to Citizens United. The amount of money that billionaires have put in our elections since Citizens United was passed in, what was that, 2010? It has spiked. It was only it was a couple, I think, maybe $15 million. And now it's in the billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. And that's why we're seeing this K-shaped economy. The people who have a lot are going up, and the people who have not as much are keeping going down, right? So we're continuing to separate this out. And so for me, campaign finance reform is so vital for a couple of reasons, right? Number one, people ask me about term limits. And I think term limits is one of those things where we haven't really gotten the science right yet, because we haven't gotten the money right. You gotta follow the money. If we put caps on campaign finance or on campaign spending, it has been empirically proven in places like France to reduce incumbency. And so instead of putting these sort of, we're like, okay, there's arbitrary numbers of years on term limits, right? There is, I think, a role for an elder statesperson, right? Being like, let's kind of get things going. Think about it if everything was always run by freshmen. No one would get anything done, right? Because everyone would be like, I want my pet thing. I want my pet thing. I want my pet thing. You need a good sort of diversity of experience, right? But when you handle the money, that's really the key. That's why I'm not taking corporate cash. And that's also why I believe so strongly in campaign finance reform. So once we reduce the amount of power that the voices of corporations and billionaires have in our elections, we can start making more meaningful, scalable, sustainable change to the critical systems that underpin our entire society: housing, education, healthcare, and so forth. And so for me, affordability, it all goes down to increasing that wage, right? And then there is the access piece, right? So that's making sure that people in rural communities, or even in urban communities that don't have access to good healthcare, we invest very strategically in those things. We have this MAHA movement, right? Make America Healthy Again. But we're not investing in food deserts, in actually trying to give people good food. We're trying to take SNAP away from people and then reducing what they can buy with it. We need to be able to give people paid maternity leave if they're saying that they're pro-family. If we do that, if we are the only advanced developed nation on this planet that does not have paid maternity leave as a federal or a national policy, and that is abhorrent. Those are the kind of things that I would push forward as far as access goes. And then it comes down to opportunity, right? Opportunity is education, and investing in education from elementary and up. Right. And it's not just STEM, it's also reading and civics education, because clearly we don't have a great job on civics education anymore. And then it's really also investing in public universities. It's investing in trade schools, in community colleges, and providing good jobs for people again. We don't need to overburden people with all of this debt from school if there are no jobs on the other end, and then we blame them for it. There are so many people with bachelor's and master's degrees out there who are working at coffee shops, who want to be who want to be psychiatrists, who want to be psychologists, who want to be teachers, but they can't get jobs that will actually allow them to afford what they need. And so that is what I'm talking about, is we have to first figure out how to pay people more. That will buoy our economy, because a rising tide lifts all boats. Right now, we know for a fact that trickle-down supply side Reaganomics on steroids does not work. Giving more to billionaires doesn't make everybody else's lives better. It makes it worse. We need to reverse this situation, give people at the bottom more opportunity. And it's not just giving them money, it's opportunity to earn.
Yeah, the Citizens United, I mean,
Yeah.
just case in point, I just read this morning about the money that, the RNC and the DNC and the congressional campaign committees were raising and who was ahead. And, the Republicans are slightly ahead, but they said, but then Elon Musk has just started his campaign giving and just gave 10 million to this. Just saying right there, a person can make that big of an impact on, elections where everybody votes, but only the chosen few are able to give in amounts where they can actually sway the results. I mean, that's not a democracy, I'm afraid to tell you.
No,
Yeah,
it's
Elon, I
not.
think was 10 million put into the Senate race already.
Yep.
For
Nate
in
Morris.
Kentucky. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
So they're just starting to list all the big money donors who are gonna, start affecting how much money there is to spend. It's just, it's ludicrous.
Yes.
Makes
and
no sense.
universally, everybody is against this. At least the people. When you talk to people, nobody wants that. But yet,
Clarence Thomas wants it.
Yeah, well,
Right,
Clarence
exactly.
Clarence
Thomas wants
Thomas wants his yacht vacations not to dry up, Brian.
it.
I mean,
Exactly. What's he gonna do, right? Who's gonna buy him a motorhome?
There you
right.
go.
I'm just saying, I think it's a point that resonates with people, across the political
Absolutely.
spectrum, except for the haves. They're like, oh no, we like it this way.
Mhm.
But us,
Yep.
the normal people,
Yeah.
no,
This country
Not good.
was not built for the billionaires. It was built for the people.
that's absolutely
Yeah.
right.
I think you went through a lot of the priorities in terms of the basics, the building blocks, the foundational elements of people's lives, like SNAP, Medicaid, WIC,
Oh, yeah.
housing, and those things that are important. I mean, with your background, we also wanted to talk a little bit about energy security and moving Kentucky toward a future ready energy landscape. There's a lot of discussion about the data centers and AI and the impact of the grid. And how do you envision balancing, this affordability, independence, but yet having the innovation that we need to continue moving forward?
Well, I'll be honest with you. As far as innovation goes, we already have a lot of it. We have the building blocks. We have wind turbines. We have solar. Nuclear has made huge strides in technologies, over the past 30 years. The problem is it goes back to Citizens United, Brian, because the oil and gas companies are dumping tons of money into political campaigns. And so people will not make legislation that is beneficial. And I always tell people, when it comes to the energy space, we have to look at China. China does not do things because it makes people feel good or there's some sense of nostalgia. They do it for the collective, to bring them all up. They do it for sound economic reasons. And we need to do that too. But we need to do it to make sure that America is not caught on our back foot, because we are already losing, like, on the energy crisis. The energy crisis is here. It's not looming. It's here. We are already struggling. People in Kentucky are already paying over 40% more for their utility rates than they did 10 years ago. And with the big bullshit bill, I don't know, can I say that on here?
You could say that.
Yes, you did. Yes, you
Can I say that
can.
on here? We're supposed to
Yes.
see utility.
In all caps.
We're supposed to see increases of up to 48% here in Kentucky. And one of the reasons that Kentucky has succeeded in attracting manufacturing jobs in the past is because our energy rates are lower. We just had a huge aluminum smelting plant taken away from northeastern Kentucky and moved to Nebraska because of energy availability and cost. Now, when it comes to the data center piece, once again, this is billionaires, creating AI to, I don't know, sell us more ads and do their own kind of obsession. I mean, it's this fetishization of AI. They're like, ooh, what fancy thing can I do with Grok today? Well, apparently it's create kitty porn, which we're not going after. This is disgusting.
I know.
This is
Yeah.
absolutely disgusting. And so the thing is that so data centers, I will say that, data centers are not all bad at their heart, right? Because data centers, hyperscale data centers, the ones done by AWS, Google, Azure, Oracle, IBM, when you move compute workloads from on premises servers and computers and you move them to the cloud, it uses so much less water, energy, critical raw materials. And that's a net positive, right? However, when you start adding in the race to the bottom or the race to the top or the race to Lord knows where we're going, honestly, with Gen AI or AI, because that's the challenge is you talk about strategy, Brian. There is no strategy with AI. It's just let's do as much as possible, and it is a bubble. And the fact that the S&P 500 is fully anchored in 10 stocks that are all focused on AI generation, that is an incredible bubble that could lead to our next not just recession, but Great Depression. And until we actually start to get smart about it, start to regulate it, because the technology is outpacing not just the ability, but also the desire to legislate and control it, we have to start putting handles on it. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see utility rates increase. We're going to see water stressed areas continue to get hurt. We're going to continue to see critical raw materials, everything from copper to rare earth minerals to steel, be a problem. And so we need to make sure that we are putting clear reporting and transparency requirements on data centers. And we also need to make sure that, first off, let me just tell you my personal opinion about AI. AI is a great tool, okay? It is not a solution. It's not a panacea. It's not a cure all. It's a great tool for productivity. But the problem is you've got things like Grok sucking up all of this for what purpose? What's the purpose? If they want to use all of this, they need to pay for it.
That's one of the things I was going to say was, when you're talking about they're creating AI, just
Why?
to create it, we're creating AI where there isn't even a need to fill needs that we don't even have.
I
I
know.
mean, it's, for instance, I can't just go to Google and search for something without an AI review now. I'm like, okay, I'll be the first to admit that sometimes I find it to be handy because I can get a couple of things and maybe some good links. But honestly,
I don't want it.
I could get that through search. Yeah, I don't really want it. And every time it comes up, I'm like, okay, how much water was used? How much power was used to churn out this thing that I really don't need or
Yeah.
really don't want?
But I will
It's
say to
ridiculous.
every single individual who's listening to this right now, I just want you to not feel guilty about querying ChatGPT or using a Grammarly or using an AI note taker, okay? That is a straight up drop in the bucket compared to what these big corporations are doing, right? At AWS, I used to work
Mm.
with customers who are the mega users, right? You're Pinterest, Netflix, Adobe, Salesforce, you name it, right? Starbucks, Apple, all these people are on AWS, right? I'm sorry, all these corporations, not people. See, I was dealing with people. I was dealing with the people inside. All of these corporations are using this massively. And I think that we need to be more focused on making sure that these companies, especially social media and media companies, because the number of times I have seen newspapers and otherwise reputable media outlets churn out chat GPT AI generated drivel is disgusting.
Ugh. Mm.
We need to have a
Mm.
national consensus around what what the responsible usage of AI is.
Yeah.
And I think a
Uh,
lot of it is just about bringing awareness to people too, because I don't think a lot of people understand that what it is actually doing, how it's taking up these natural resources, how these AI data centers will affect the environment. And I think in some of these smaller communities, people will come in and say, hey, we got this great opportunity. We're going to bring you all kinds of jobs, which there really isn't
No, there
jobs
aren't.
involved in it. And we're going to just take this little piece of land and be gone. And it's not. And to your second point about energy costs, I just received my Duke Energy bill today.
Mm,
And I've been in my house, new build, for 7 years, and it is doubled. It is more than
yeah.
doubled. And I
mhm.
just was, oh my God, this is
And people
crazy.
can't
And
do without
the AI,
electricity, Natalie.
we don't even have the centers here yet, right? It's just, energy tax credits and things like that are no longer there for people. It's unsustainable.
And so what we have to do is
I,
we have to start investing in a future-proof, scalable, reliable energy system. Nuclear is a critical part of that, and that is a bipartisan thing, by the way. Like Rand Paul is pro-nuclear, right? A lot of Republicans are for permitting reform and upgrading transmission and distribution lines. But this whole notion that like coal is going to come back, I wrote a piece on my Substack. I have a Substack newsletter that I write to try to be more, forthright and have a direct conversation with, my voters and my donors too. Because, like, what's the worst thing? Like giving somebody $100 and then never hearing from them again, let alone more than that. So I try to keep them up to date. And one of my donors was actually called me and said, Erin, you're the only person who does this. And I thank you so much for doing that because you do well researched, like, introspective, direct pieces, and you show us who you are. And I do this because this is the kind of communication I want to have with my constituents if I am lucky enough to earn the trust of the voters in the 6th District of Kentucky in May and then again in November. But one of the pieces I wrote was on Andy Barr's essentially like it was the reality of coal, right? It's looking forward, not backward. The concept of coal here in Kentucky, and by the way, Andy Barr has been the top 3 recipient of corporate donations from mining companies since he got into office. And there are no mines in this district. Explain that to me.
Hmm.
Okay. It supports less than 10,000 jobs in the state, but we are somehow so focused on it and it becomes just such a hot button issue. But let me just talk to you about the economic realities of coal. Coal means jobs to so many people. But the problem is that the GOP has been selling this false bill of goods and these false promises to people, especially of Eastern Kentucky, places where my dad and my dad's family are from in Hazard. And it's just a straight up lie. See, jobs started really being reduced in the coal space 70 years ago, not because of wokeism or whatever. It's because of mechanization. It's because they started using machines instead of having everything manual. That dropped a significant amount of jobs from coal. But then also we have to look at it because we here in Kentucky are just not economically competitive in the coal market when it comes to other states like Virginia, West Virginia, Alabama, and especially Wyoming and Montana. Kentucky coal is not as effective. It's also in really deep, hard to reach veins. Meanwhile, places like Wyoming and Montana, those are veins of coal right at the surface. And it's really high quality, it's metallurgical, and it's thermal coal. So for both heating, smelting steel, as well as so really high calorific content, meaning it can get real hot, or thermal, which is for power generation, right? We just do not, our coal, it's more expensive to get. It's not as effective, and there's just not much of it there. So the jobs that if we did spend all this money, your taxpayer dollars, on revitalizing coal in Eastern Kentucky, unfortunately, it's going to be like a puff of smoke, and it's only going to have the impact for a very small number of people. And the people it's going to have the most impact on are people like Andy Barr, who take money from the coal companies because they have full mineral rights in perpetuity for everything that goes below their land. And it's going to only help the people who are from those mining companies. The jobs, the economic revitalization, it's a lie, and it is irresponsible of the Republican Party to continue to peddle that lie to people like folks in Kentucky.
Yeah, and then when you take into account the health and the environmental aspects, if you could get everybody anybody sit down long enough to trust the data and look out far enough, I mean, the cost impacts, just let alone over a long period of time, make coal just I'm sorry, it's an energy, it's a fuel of the past. As you said, we need to be looking forward.
Well, if
So,
the Department of Labor wants to actually, enforce the safety requirements for these coal miners are going to be dying of silica inhalation, which is essentially asbestos. It's the same kind of challenge. It gives you like mesothelioma, it gives you lung cancer. It causes so many challenges. And these are miners. There's a reason why coal miners from West Virginia and Kentucky went to the Department of Labor and they protested last year because the Trump Department of Labor is not enforcing these mining companies to actually make sure that those mines
right.
are safe. And so
course
but Brian, you don't even have to talk about the, quote unquote, the woke climate or the woke health, right? You can just talk about it in dollars and cents. I'll talk to you about just straight up supply side economic, or I'm sorry, not supply side, supply and demand economics. This is very basic 101 stuff.
Yeah, and why not invest in the new energy, which is the future, right? We're only going to keep falling farther and farther behind other countries. It's just, it doesn't make sense.
But Natalie, and the thing is, and it's correct, right? It's energy security. And that's how I talk about it. I'm like, listen, guys, the future wars, they are going to be waged over bytes and watts, not with bullets. But we keep investing in bullets, not the watts, and definitely not the responsible utilization of those bytes.
Yeah. And just to pivot right back really quickly back to the climate change issue is, national security personnel have been saying for a long time that climate change is a national security risk. And I think there's no greater example of that is the reason why Trump wants to be in Greenland, right? Because those, the passages are opening up now, right? The ice is melting. So it kind of gives the same thing we talk about the data center, the same thing we talk about coal. Like it's a national security issue. It's also an economic issue. It's not a woke issue.
And and that's the thing though. And if people want to tell me that climate change is not real, talk to an insurance company. That's all you need to do.
Yeah. Try to get home insurance in Florida.
There it is. You want to insure your
or any kind of
property?
structural insurance.
Good luck.
Yeah, right on.
Well, you talked about Andy Barr, and it is a crowded Democratic primary for you. It's crowded on the Republican side as well. The district that you're in has seen a lot of political changes. Tell me why you are the candidate to not only win the primary, but to also flip this district blue.
Yeah. And listen, I'm going to start opposite. I'm going to start in November. So if you look at the entire slate of candidates, right, on the Democratic side, I'm the only one who is a proud progressive. And that does not mean like I'm going to lead on identity issues. No, it actually means that I'm going to lead on being aggressive on living wages, on universal health care, on eliminating for-profit prisons, on leaning into renewable energy, and trying to get corporate cash out of politics. I'm also the only person who actually has said that I will not take corporate cash. But let me tell you why, because I'll tell you, I think Ralph Alvarado is likely going to be the GOP nominee, right? And honestly, and if Ryan Dotson is, I mean, even better, to be honest, because those two are just trying to out MAGA each other. Someone was telling me, well, I was trying to talk to Ryan Dotson, but he was in Mar-a-Lago. And I'm like, yeah, okay. This is just, it's a race to the bottom of the stinkiest sewer at this point.
Yeah, we're below the bottom at this point.
And Kentucky has been fed Democrats, especially in this district, who have been so on the center that they're essentially like, you're like, are they Republicans? Are they Democrats? We don't know. We need someone who provides a clear contrast and a vision of not just this is bad, but of hope, of opportunity, of someone who's actually built businesses and created jobs and increased wages for people, who has actually tackled these kind of issues, who's worked on the global stage, the national stage, the state stage, and the local stage. I am the only person in my race who has done all of those things. I'm the only candidate who's actually created jobs. I'm the only candidate who has said, I do not want corporate money and I want things to change, because the way things are working, people feel betrayed because they have been betrayed. They have been bought and sold as commodities under Andy Barr, under Mitch McConnell, and under every single other representative they've had for a long time. And I will not do that. And I have a track record of proving that. Listen, I've been offered to work for the Saudi government. I said no. I have been offered a Schedule A job with USCIS, which means that I didn't have to go through the USA jobs process. It was essentially an appointment position with USCIS, which is part of Department of Homeland Security that works with ICE. And this was back in 2021, 2022. And I said no, because I did not like how ICE was behaving then, or the Department of Homeland Security was behaving then. I could have gotten a cushy government job forever. But I said no because it was against my morals. And it was against my values. And I will always uphold my values and the people of Kentucky over anything else. And I am also, finally, I am the only candidate in my race who does not look for permission to say something about the critical issues we are facing every day. I'm the only one who has said that we need to abolish ICE and how clearly to do that, and what we need to do both immediately and long term, but also actually comment on critical issues. I was the first to respond to Venezuela. I was the first to respond about Greenland. I actually am out in the streets protesting with people side by side, serving people at homeless shelters. I don't do things just for a photo op and a donor check. I do things because I show up for people, and I always will.
Fantastic.
Love it.
There you go.
Good for you. We've seen a lot of passion from so many of the candidates that we have interviewed. I think you have to take the top of the passion award though right now. You're the
The bullhorn
front
helps,
runner.
doesn't it? I don't even need
Hey, I
the
did want to
bullhorn.
say, yeah, I know you got that. I came in scared. So I just wanted to mention, I did read your Substack. I'm a big
Thank you.
Substack fan. And I love the long
Thank you.
form writing, format. And I think that's great. And I read a couple of your articles. And I agree. That's really a good way to allow constituents and just people in general, maybe who aren't going to be voting for you, just to get to know you and also understand where you're coming from. And it provokes a lot of thought and, a lot of, I don't know, introspection, I think, on, who we all are, what do we all want out of this? And, so I just wanted to say, I think that's great you're doing that. You're an excellent writer, and I really appreciate that you're taking
I
the
wish I
time
had
to do
more
that.
time to do that. I literally on my to-do list.
I don't know how you're finding the time to do that. I don't know how you do that. I see what people accomplish, and I'm like, man, am I just a slug or something? Because I can't seem to get anything done. I get a load of laundry done. I'm pretty excited,
Be kind to yourself. We all have
You
a
get a gold
to-do list.
star
We'll
on your
just
tourist list,
grow and
Ryan.
never get smaller, but be kind to yourself always.
Well, Erin, we got to know a lot about you, a lot about your platform, your passion, where you want to take things, why you feel you're the best candidate. Before we do let you go, we like to do a little quick lightning round with all of our guests. If you're up for that 5 fun
100%.
questions.
I'll try to answer them short. I'm bad at doing that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right. Keep it all over. What's one Kentucky value you think Washington D.C. needs more
Do
of?
y'all remember that terrible tourism slogan that we had a few years back with the smiley face sunshine on it that said like Kentucky, it's just that friendly?
I like the sunshine.
Well,
I liked it.
But it was like so funny, right? But they were like, Kentucky, it's just that friendly. When I first went back to when I first went to DC for college, I remember chatting with people in line while I was like waiting to check out at the grocery store, and people were like, "Why are you talking to me?" And I'm like, "'Cause we're standing in line together." I grew up in Lawrenceburg, and you go down the road and you do the little like 3 fingers up the country wave. I think it's just more humanity and just being friendly with each other as people. That used to happen in Congress, but I want to bring that back. Just being friendly and talking to people. As my mom and as everybody who knows me knows, I've never met a stranger. I'll chat with anybody. And I think that we just need to bring that it's just that friendly back.
I like it. And more camaraderie in Congress. And I've spoken to a lot of people in Congress, and most of them say, behind closed doors, you get along pretty well.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, you've been a cocktail editor for a bourbon blog. So bourbon, neat, on the rocks, or in a cocktail?
Right now I prefer my bourbon no ice. So,
no ice.
I have a shirt on my website if you want to buy it, store.erinpetrie.com. It says bourbon, no ice, because we must abolish ice right now. So
nicely done. Nicely done to play that in there. All right. Kind of going back to your travels, home is where the heart is, and that's Kentucky for you. But you've lived abroad outside of the bluegrass. What's the one thing you missed most when you weren't in Kentucky? And I realized it might be that Kentucky charm, but is there anything else there that you've missed when you're not in Kentucky? That is so funny.
It's Ale 8. I used to mule Ale 8 back to DC for my friends. I'd always take orders of Ale 8 and Mingy beef jerky.
Oh, so there's a gentleman on our executive committee who literally I don't know where he gets all the Ale 8 that he gets, because he always has like cases of it with him. Every event he's got it. So this is a thing.
What?
I've never
We
had
got to
one.
fix this. Oh, it's amazing. It's the best.
I know.
And it also
You need
pairs.
to, yeah.
Listen, if I'm gonna have it's either bourbon no ice or bourbon and Ale 8, man. That's the best. The best.
That's right. That's right. That's a true Kentucky mule there.
Absolutely. All right. What one song
So I'm a
gets you in a
musical
good mood?
person. I mean, I've done choir, musical theater. I'm a karaoke queen. So I love a lot of music. I love Fleetwood Mac. But I think that the one song that always puts me in a good mood is a Love Song by Sarah Bareilles. Like, it's a bop and I can sing along. But it's a
Aw.
song about defying expectations and going against the establishment. If you've never, I mean, listen to it and you kind of like bop around to it. But if you look into kind of the lyrics and the background, her producers was like, "Hey, you're doing really well. You need to write a love song." And she's like, "I don't want to do that." And they're like, "Well, you have to." And she's like, "All right, screw you. I'm gonna do this." And so it's all about kind of sticking it to them and being like, "Look, I can succeed and even exceed expectations by going against what you expect me to do." And that's what I want to do in the United States Congress.
All right. And then lastly, what is the one thing you want voters to know about your candidacy that will not fit in the 30-second ad pitch?
That will not fit in a 30-second ad pitch. Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm a nerd. I'm a policy nerd, of course, but listen, at the end of the day, I'm I am who I am. You get who you get right now. This has been always who I've been. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm an incredibly empathetic person. Um, I love to. I'm a servant leader at my heart. So if you meet me, if you see me on socials, I really am who I am. I don't put a face on. I don't put like campaign Erin on versus Erin. If you know me out there, you know me for me. And trust that I'm always going to be true to that and I'm always going to treat you like a person.
Well,
Love it.
thanks for playing along.
I've seen some of your reels on Instagram and a few other places, and you just come right
Oh, I
out front
do.
with it. So it shows too,
Yeah.
and that's good. I think a lot
Great.
of people appreciate that. We need that. So, Erin, thank you so much for joining us. Where can listeners learn more about your
Yeah,
campaign and get
absolutely. So you can go
involved?
to erinpetrey.com. That's ErinPetrey.com. You can find all my socials. I'm on everything from LinkedIn to Blue Sky to Threads to Facebook to TikTok. You can also head to my Substack. It's free to subscribe there. And then, of course, if you've got a few extra dollars to throw at me, every campaign is money, message, and field. And I need as much money as I can to get my message out to the field, which is voters just like you, because I really do want to make a difference. But until I can get that campaign finance reform done, still have to get this cash in. So I hate fundraising more than
Right.
anything. I'd
Right.
rather be out there serving people than raising money.
All right.
Fantastic.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you. Thank you for running and thank you for what you're doing. And we really appreciate it. And good luck to you. If you win that
Well,
primary,
thank you
come
so
back and
much. I
talk to
hope I'll
us.
be here to talk to you again.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Take care. All right. Well, that's it for this candidate interview. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss on any of our upcoming podcasts or exclusive material. And don't forget, you can join the conversation at our Facebook and Instagram pages or at blue.podcast.com. Until next time, stay curious, keep the facts in focus, and never stop fighting for what matters. Peace out, everybody.